What if I told you that one of the smallest creatures in your backyard is helping feed the world? Would you believe it? For many people, bees are nothing more than buzzing insects with wings, the kind that can make us instinctively step back the moment they get too close, afraid of being stung, afraid of being chased, afraid of being hurt. But what if we've been looking at them the wrong way all along? Because hidden inside that tiny body, barely half an inch long, is something extraordinary. A society more organized than many human cities. A communication system so sophisticated that scientists are still trying to fully understand it. And a responsibility so important that if it suddenly disappeared, the shelves in grocery stores around the world could begin to look very different. Most people see a bee and think of honey. Some think of a painful sting. Very few realize they are looking at one of the most important species on Earth. Because every day, without recognition, without reward, and without anyone noticing, billions of these tiny workers perform a task that helps sustain farms, forests, ecosystems, and ultimately, human life itself. And perhaps the most remarkable part is this. A creature small enough to rest on the tip of your finger has become one of the most influential forces in the natural world. So how did that happen? And what secrets are hidden inside the life of the Western honeybee? To understand why that happens, we first need to understand exactly who this creature is. This is the Western honeybee, scientifically known as Apis mellifera, a member of the order Hymenoptera, the same group that includes ants and wasps. But while ants are known as the engineers beneath our feet, and wasps are famous for their relentless hunting skills, the Western honeybee has taken a completely different path. And that is exactly what makes it remarkable. When you see a bee hovering over a cluster of flowers, it is easy to assume that it is simply searching for a little sweetness for itself, a tiny creature, a simple life. But that is only what we see. The true nature of the Western honeybee is not found in its constantly vibrating wings or in the stinger that makes so many people uneasy. Its true nature is cooperation. A single bee can survive only for a short time if separated from its colony. But when tens of thousands of individuals come together, they create a living community so complex that scientists often describe it as a superorganism, a giant living body made up of thousands of separate individuals working as one. Within that world, there is no chaos. Every bee has a purpose. Some spend their entire lives caring for developing larvae. Some build perfect wax structures with astonishing precision. Others fly miles every day in search of pollen and nectar, carrying those precious resources back to the colony, not for themselves, not for a reward, not because they have a choice, but because the survival of the entire colony depends on it. And this is where the story becomes even more extraordinary. While many people think of honeybees simply as producers of honey, nature has given them a far greater role. Every time a bee lands on a flower, it unknowingly performs a task that billions of people rely on every single day. A silent task, an almost invisible task, yet one that helps feed the world. So how did a society of insects weighing only a few dozen pounds become one of the most important forces supporting human civilization? So where does the secret lie? How did a creature small enough to land on the tip of your finger become one of the most important forces in the natural world? The answer begins with a paradox, because this insect is hardly a hunter at all. In the insect world, many species survive by hunting. Dragonflies chase prey through the air. Praying mantises ambush victims with blade-like forelegs. Wasps use venom to subdue their targets. But the Western honeybee does none of those things. No pursuit, no ambushes, no violent hunts. Instead, it does something that seems far simpler. It harvests. Every morning, as the first rays of sunlight appear, thousands of worker bees leave the hive like tiny aircraft. They spread out across fields, gardens, and forests in search of nectar and pollen. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a feeding trip. But look closer. Every flower they visit is a fueling station. Every flight is a mission. Every grain of pollen brought back is a resource that helps sustain an entire living city. And perhaps the most remarkable part is this. No one is giving orders. There are no maps, no commanders, no written plans. So how can tens of thousands of individuals coordinate with such astonishing precision? That is when we begin to understand the true nature of this species. If you have ever flinched at the sound of a bee buzzing near your ear, you might assume that honeybees are aggressive and dangerous creatures. But the truth is exactly the opposite. Honeybees do not like to fight. They like to work. Most of a worker bee's life is not spent in battle. It is spent in service. She cleans the hive. She cares for developing larvae. She builds perfect wax chambers. And eventually, she ventures out into the world to gather resources for the colony. She builds, she nurtures, she serves, day after day. The irony is that the honeybee's most famous weapon is the thing it wants to use the least. Because after stinging a mammal, a worker bee will usually die. Think about that for a moment. The weapon we fear most is often her final sacrifice. But if the honeybee's personality is already unusual, its reproductive cycle is even stranger. Inside a hive that may contain more than 50,000 individuals, only one female is allowed to reproduce. One individual, one queen, one living engine of life. Every day, the queen can lay thousands of eggs. But the most astonishing part is not the number. It is what happens next. Because many of the bees in the colony begin life from eggs that are nearly identical, what determines their future is food. A larva fed an ordinary diet will become a worker bee, but a larva fed continuously with royal jelly will become a new queen. The same beginning, a completely different destiny. Nature does not always operate through strength. Sometimes it operates through details so small that they seem impossible to believe, and that is only the beginning. Because honeybees possess abilities that continue to amaze scientists. Take language, for example. Would you believe that an insect can give directions using nothing more than a dance? When a worker bee discovers a rich source of flowers, she returns to the hive and begins moving her body in a precise pattern. To us, it looks like chaos. To other bees, it is information, distance, direction, food quality, all encoded within a single dance. Even more astonishing, the entire system works without spoken words. No sound, no writing, no technology. Beyond communication, honeybees can also see ultraviolet patterns that are completely invisible to the human eye. A flower that appears plain and ordinary to us may look like a brightly illuminated runway guiding a bee directly to its destination. And their abilities do not stop there. Honeybees can regulate the temperature of their hive as a collective. When temperatures rise, hundreds of workers beat their wings in unison to create cooling airflow. When temperatures drop, they contract their flight muscles to generate heat. The colony functions like a giant living organism, a collective mind, a biological system that humans are still trying to understand. Yet even all of this is not the honeybee's greatest value. So what truly makes this insect priceless? Many people would say honey, others would say beeswax. Some might say royal jelly. No, those are merely bonuses. The honeybee's true value lies in something most of us never see: pollination. Every time a bee lands on a flower, tiny grains of pollen cling to its body. When it travels to another flower, it carries life with it. An action so small it seems meaningless, yet one that determines the survival of countless plant species. No bees, fewer flowers, fewer fruits, fewer seeds, less food. No insect can fully replace them. No machine can replicate the millions of flights bees perform every single day. Apples, strawberries, blueberries, almonds, watermelons, sunflowers, and hundreds of other crops. Behind every harvest stands the work of billions of winged laborers that most of us never even notice. The irony is that many people only think about bees when they get stung. Yet every single day, these insects help place food on our tables. And that leads us to a far more important question. If the familiar sound of buzzing disappeared from the world tomorrow, would we simply lose an insect? Or would we lose one of the silent foundations supporting our civilization itself? And perhaps the most remarkable thing of all is that none of this is happening somewhere far away. It is happening all around us. Right now, maybe in a garden just down the street, along a fence covered in wildflowers, inside a hollow tree at the end of a trail, or even within a hidden cavity in a wall that you pass by every day without ever noticing. Because Western honeybees rarely try to attract human attention. They simply work, quietly, day after day, season after season. So, how can you tell if they are nearby? The first sign is usually not the hive itself. It is the flight activity. If you regularly see bees flying in a consistent direction and returning from that same direction, especially on warm, sunny days, there is a good chance that an active colony is somewhere nearby. Look closely. You will begin to notice that these are not random flights. They are transportation routes, repeated hundreds, sometimes thousands of times each day. But what about the hive itself? In the wild, Honeybees typically choose locations that are hidden and well protected. A hollow tree, a crevice in a rock face, an empty space inside an old structure. Any place that can shield them from rain, wind, and predators. When a hive is active, the entrance is usually bustling with activity. Some bees are constantly taking off, others are constantly returning. A steady hum fills the air. No chaos, no interruptions, just a continuous flow of movement, like a miniature airport operating from sunrise to sunset. But an abandoned hive tells a very different story. No incoming flights, no outgoing flights, no endless stream of worker bees moving back and forth, no familiar sound of a living community at work, only old honeycomb, drying slowly with time. A structure that was once full of life, now transformed into a silent archive of the past. That is the difference between a living city and a forgotten one. And perhaps, after everything we have discovered today, the question is no longer whether honeybees are important. The real question is how much we have misunderstood them. What many people see as nothing more than a small flying insect with a painful sting is, in reality, an engineer of nature, a transporter of life, and an essential part of an ecosystem that humanity depends on every single day. So what do you think? After learning all of this, has your view of the Western honeybee changed? Have you ever spotted a hive or noticed their activity near where you live? And do you think a creature this small truly has a greater impact on our lives than most of us realize? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories and perspectives. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden secrets of the natural world, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our next journey into the wonders of nature. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Take care. And I'll see you in the next story from the natural world.